Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Today, I want to talk to you all about the topic of institutionalization because it is very clear that for the vast majority of the people that I come in contact with, they have a negative connotation that attaches to this word institutionalization. I think this became a topic that I first began to focus on when I entered into the Virginia Department of Corrections. And, there's this term that goes around in prison where a person say, you institutionalize. And, it's always said in a way as if it's something negative to be institutionalized. So I want to begin by first giving the true or the correct definition of what institutionalization is in practice. Institutionalization, it merely means to adapt or to adjust for comfort and survival reasons. And I'm going to explain what I mean. When I first entered into the Virginia Department of Corrections, the first issue that I had was I moved in a cell with an individual. And when I moved in the cell, I was brushing my teeth. And I was brushing my teeth and I spit in the sink. And I had a confrontation. Well, I'm not even going to say a confrontation, an altercation with an individual simply because I spit in the sink. And I really didn't know what I'd done wrong until after the fact, until after we, almost came to blows behind this particular matter. And the individual expressed to me that in prison, spitting in the sink is a sign of disrespect because you have two individuals living in a closed quarters. Oftentimes, it's not by choice, but yet they have to put their face rag inside of the sink. People use their sink to cook. People use their sink in prison to wash clothes. There's so many different things that we do with the sink. But in prison, in the institution of prison, people do not spit inside of the sink, and it's a blatant sign of disrespect. So, me, I wasn't initially or intentionally trying to do something to disrespect this individual, but this was a practice that we did out on the street. When I'm in the home with my family, when I grew up, we all spat in the sink when we brushed our teeth, right? But in prison, you have to spit in the toilet when you brush your teeth. So I didn't know this. So spitting inside of the sink was something unique to the institution of society. But in the institution of prison, spitting in the sink was something that was disrespectful. So now, when I entered into prison, I initially was living as if I was out in society. So when you do that and bring those two worlds together, in many ways, there's going to be a conflict. So in order for me to survive in prison, I had to adapt, and that was for safety reasons. So, or you can say security reasons. So this is how it is. Another thing that we do inside of prison is that we take, many of you eat oodles and noodles. And we take oodles and noodles and we throw them down on the floor, and we throw them on the floor to break them up, right? So this is what we do. And we break them up so that we can put them inside of the bowl so that we can cook them. But imagine doing that out in society. If you see your family, your loved one, taking oodles and noodles and you taking it back and you just throwing it down on the floor, they're going to look at you like something is wrong with you. Like, what are you doing? So throwing your noodles on the floor, it may seem like it's something like crazy, but this is unique to the prison lifestyle. Another thing that we do in prison is that we put shower shoes on. This is unique to the institution of prison. Out in society, I don't get in my shower in my house. I'm in my house right now. I don't put shower shoes on in order to take the shower. I take my shoes off and I just get into the shower. So I think the message is clear. There are certain things that we do inside of prison for comfort reasons or for safety reasons, survival reasons. That's what I'm going to say, in order to survive. But we wouldn't do these things out in society. And the same thing, some things that we do out in society for survival reasons and for comfort reasons, but we don't do those things inside of prison. And I can give so many different examples, right? But I think that my message is clear. So in order to survive in prison, what a person have to do, they have to adapt and adjust for survival reasons, and comfort. Otherwise, you're not going to survive inside a prison. Some things you're going to have to do inside a prison in order to survive. And this is the reality. So one thing, when I was facilitating classes in the cognitive community, I used to ask individuals if they was institutionalized. And at the beginning of the class, almost always 100% of the individuals that's in the class say, I'm not institutionalized. And then I tell individuals to explain to me what institutionalization is. And oftentimes, everybody have the definition wrong. Now, if a person give a definition of that what they want it to the particular word to mean, by all means, have at it. I'm not saying that they're wrong, but we're saying what the true definition of institutionalization is. Most people have it wrong. It's just something. It's just a meaning that's handed down, from the generations. Like it's like a sacred heirloom, that's handed down in the prison, you know. So if a person say that you're institutionalized, we take it as a sign of disrespect. I'm not institutionalized, but in reality, how did you survive? The most successful individuals that survived inside of prison, right? If you survived, that means that you was institutionalized, right? Most people don't live in prison the way that they lived out in society. So the same thing, once a person is released from prison, then they have to readapt and readjust, right? For survival reasons and comfort reasons. We can't, some of the things that we did in prison, we cannot do those things out here in society. And the problem, and this is why many of us get caught up in prison, right? And stay in prison. Or some of us, we get caught up, out in society and go back to prison. But I don't just want to talk about prison. I just want to talk about this institutionalization as it relates to every aspect of life. Marriage is an institution. The single life is an institution. Each institution has its particular codes and rules that governs it, that governs the manner in which you operate inside of that institution, right? So prison, it has its rules on the way that, like, some spoken and some unspoken, right? Ways that you have to operate inside of that institution, and the same thing out in society. And marriage is the same way. Most people, if you go inside the institution of marriage living as if you are a single person, you're going to find conflict. And as a consequence, you are not going to reach your full potential as an item, right? You and your wife, or you and your husband. See, because there's two institutions that you're bringing together and there's conflict. It's the same thing. A person that's in the military can't live in a free world as if he's out in society, as a civilian. If you live like you're in the military, right? As a civilian, there's going to be conflict, right? I hope that my message is clear. So this applies to every single aspect of life. Even when you're working for different companies, each company have different rules and manners of operating and behaving that's unique to the institution of that particular company, right? The same thing if you're living as a criminal, as an antisocial individual. You can't live as an antisocial individual and as a pro-social civilian, a law-abiding citizen out in society, and there not be any conflict, right? There's going to be some type of conflict, and eventually there's going to be a negative consequence of that conflict, playing both sides of the fence. So this is what I want to give to you all today on the topic of institutionalization. We will never, ever evolve into the best version of ourselves or reach our full human potential if we don't understand that we are institutionalized from some standpoint, right? Whenever we're trying to enter into another institution, you're going to have to become deinstitutionalized and reinstitutionalized. And what I mean, some behaviors are going to have to be unlearned, and new behaviors are going to have to be learned in order to survive. So you have to adapt and adjust for survival reasons and comfort reasons. The same thing if you're moving from state to state, city to city. There's different language that you have to learn, languages, different behaviors, right? There's a lot of different things that you have to learn that's unique to a particular institution. So remember, The prison life is an institution. Civilian life is an institution. The military life is an institution. Marital life is an institution. The single life is an institution. The street life is an institution. All of these things are institutions that have rules, right? That govern the manner of operating and behaving within those institutions. And unless you learn those rules, right? And unlearn other rules, or at least stop practicing other rules when you enter into a new institution, then you're not gonna survive. And this is the reality. Are you institutionalized? Are you institutionalized by choice? This is the question that you have to ask. Majeed Azeem.